My name is Sahan Paliskara, and this is Catherine Lee. We're on the PyTorch Developer Infrastructure team at Meta, and today we're here to talk about some of the newer things that we made for the contributors of PyTorch. I think it's probably a good idea first to introduce who this team is. This is a picture of the team. I guess I'll say hi. But generally speaking, the joke I have for this team is it deals with more or less everything that's not library development related to PyTorch. But more broadly speaking, the two things we tend to focus on is releases, which Andre will be talking about a little bit later, as well as the developer experience for PyTorch. And today, I think a good way to talk about the developer experience for PyTorch is to talk about first who we are and what we do and what PyTorch is as a repository and the challenges there is to actually maintaining a decent developer experience. I think PyTorch has some fairly unique and pretty good tools in order to actually help people develop quickly. So we're going to go through more or less the workflow of a pull request and merging it in so that you can get a taste of what it is. And then Catherine will talk about some of the newer stuff that we've made to make this experience much easier and a bit nicer for folks. There's also some more organizational and infrastructure changes that we made. We're going to highlight a few of those in a minute or so, what we call a changelog. And lastly, we'll give you some links and some resources to start contributing to PyTorch. So if you see a feature during this conference you want to contribute to, there's actually a guide of okay, how do we actually do this? But I think it's first important to appreciate how large PyTorch has gotten. It's one of the biggest projects on GitHub. If you just measure the CI over the last year, it's lasted over, and just put it serially, it would be over 1,400 years, which is insane. We run the CI in a 7,500 node cluster. There's over 14,000 commits to main in the last year alone. And more specifically, the infrastructure that powers this actually supports, outside of PyTorch, 32 separate repositories. And we also we also have a pretty solid release, 9 times over the last 365 days. We also are trying to as you can see from this presentation, we're trying to grow the folks that actually contribute to this project. So over the last year, we've seen over 3,500 PRs from 550 non-meta contributors to 2 PyTorch, which we're really proud of, and we're trying to grow this more and more. But generally speaking, like I said before, some of the work that we've done is making contributing to PyTorch a bit easier. So we're going to go through okay, what does it look like to make a pull request on PyTorch, and how does it look like to merge it in? If you look up these slides on the schedule, you'll find a bunch of links you can click on. You can look at, oh, hey, this is exactly what we're talking about. But to start on this journey, we'll first take a look at Skyline's PR. As you can see, it's approved, it's good, and it's good to merge. So a slightly different thing that we do relative to, I guess, most repos is rather than just doing a squash and commit, we actually have a GitHub bot, which we use to merge in PRs. Generally speaking, this GitHub bot takes in commands such as merge, which you see here, which lets you, as soon as you know you can reasonably merge the thing in, you can just put PyTorch bot merge, and at that point, they'll wait for the CI to finish and try to merge in your PR. Similarly, there are commands such as rebase and revert to cover the various use cases you have, so you can pretty quickly just set it and forget it. There's also more commands to this merge bot as you look at from the second link over there. But I think what makes developing PyTorch a bit more special is we have a test battery of over, I think, 4 million tests or so. And to organize this test battery and make this a lot more consumable, we offer a lot of tooling to do this. The primary one that you'll see on every PR is called Docker CI. And this effectively shows you everything that's failing, your flaky tests, and generally the information that you need to know about okay, what's wrong with my PR and what do I need to do to fix it. You'll also notice a link that starts with HUD at the very top of the PR. And this sends you to a page that's very specific to the PR itself and lets you drill down on the actual errors and the actual tests that actually run on this. Over the past year, we made a lot of improvements to HUD, which Catherine will go over later. We also offer a much more broad view about the general health of PyTorch if you just go to the main HUD page as well, which is actually what we use to revert your PRs if that ever happens. But more importantly, this is actually a very easy way to see oh, so this PR broke this set of tests, therefore we know what's going on, and it helps us actually judge the health of this repository. And now I'll hand things off to Catherine to show some of the newer features relate to this tool set that should increase your developer velocity.
Yeah, so Sahan went over an overview of some of the infra and tooling that we as a team support. So now we're going to talk about some things that are new. So as stated before, we have a ton of CI. We run over 100 CI jobs per commit by default, and in practice, on average, this is much higher. So you can imagine that it can be quite difficult to find your results. So that's what the log search and test dashboard are aimed at. So each CI job produces a raw log, and if you want to find something in the raw logs, you have to go through and open up each one of these individually. So that's what the first thing is for, the log search. It lets you search through all of your raw logs all at once. So on the left, you can see an example of someone searching for the string get clone. It's probably a bit small, but you can see it's returned some results. So this might be especially useful if you're trying to figure out if, for example, a specific test exists and ran on your PR. So the second thing on the right is the test dashboard. Each of our CI jobs runs many, many tests. And so to figure out all of the results from your test, you have to, similar to the log search, open up a lot of test artifacts. So the test dashboard helps you compile all of the information about, for example, tests that got reran or tests that failed, all of their stack traces, where these jobs ran on, as well as information about what tests did not run due to target termination, which I'm going to talk about next, as well as how many tests and how long they all took. So that way you can easily compare them to other commits to see if you, for example, caused something to get much slower or much faster. So yeah, those are two new features on the HUD, the log search and test dashboard, aimed primarily at helping developers see all of their results in one place. So the next thing that is new that we want to talk about is target termination. This one's a little less visible, but it's motivated by the same thing as the previous slide, which is that we run a ton of CI. So we run over 4 million tests per PR by default, and this number only grows. And you can imagine that we could continue to shove more machines and jobs at this, but this doesn't scale very well and it becomes pretty expensive. So instead, we turn to target determination to figure out what tests to run and what tests to exclude. So if you listened to our talk last year, Omkar spoke about using LLMs to determine code similarity between PR changes and test files, and using this as a way to decide if a test file is relevant or not. So we currently use this along with a lot of other more basic heuristics, such as what tests previously failed in the PR, if we have any profiling or tracing results, as well as if there are any historical failures associated with the test files you've edited. So all of these combine into a numerical relevance score for each test file, and we sort our test files and simply do not run the tests that we deem to be irrelevant. So the results of this are that we've saved over 100 years of CI time in the past 6 months and reduced time to signal per PR from 4 hours to 2.6, which is a pretty big win. So the next thing we'd like to talk about is the migration to the Linux Foundation CI. Recently, we've been moving our CI jobs to be run from machines that are from a Meta-owned AWS account to be under a AWS account owned by the Linux Foundation. So this chart is a little bit noisy, but we're currently at about maybe 50% of jobs are being run on Linux Foundation CI, and we are committed to increasing this number further. So ironically, we hope that this is a change that developers haven't noticed, because we've been putting a lot of effort into making this as seamless as possible while ensuring parity between the new and old machines. Lastly, we called this a change log, and that it was supposed to be for smaller changes, but in reality, when we say smaller, we simply mean we have less time to talk about it because there are a lot of changes and we only have 10 minutes. So we've picked out a couple of extra ones that we think you guys might be interested in. So the first one is that we have a new organization for experimental features called PyTorch Labs. This is for some, as I said, experimental features that you might want to work on. So some things include GPT Fast and Torchfix. So if you want to contribute to these, that's where they'll be located. The second thing is a change to the way we package PyTorch, and it's that we now offer composable Python and C++ libraries. We now offer PyTorch as composable C++ and Python libraries. So this is available in the nightlies and is expected to be fully rolled out in version 2.6 next year. And the last thing we'd like to touch upon is that we are currently migrating from Rockset to ClickHouse. These two are both database services that we use to power HUD, which was the website we showed earlier. So Rockset is terminating their public service soon. So if this is a problem that you guys have also encountered, we'd love to talk to you to see what your solutions have been.
Yeah, and to kind of close things off, as our team does a lot of things, the primary thing we care about is making sure the developer experience and the ability to contribute is really easy. So I kind of want to close this off with like these kind of setup links you can kind of find in the schedule or our slide. And these are basically tools you can kind of use to like get started. I'd first recommend taking a look at good first issues just to get your feet wet in the code base and see like what problems maybe you can just start dealing with. And in the contributing.md, you can find more information about the developer's experience at PyTorch, but more importantly, okay, how do I actually install PyTorch and how do I actually build this thing, which are extremely important. And if some of these tools seem interesting, you can click on the Dev Infra Tooling website, which will take you to the repository that most of these tools live in. But yeah, generally speaking, I hope like developing on PyTorch is a good time. If you have any complaints, please come to us. We're more than happy to address them. And thank you. And if you have any questions, please ask.